All right, so hi everybody. I did this talk a couple of weeks back and apparently it was so popular that we decided to record it. So this talk is called From Apathy to Autonomy, and it is a little bit of battle story of growing a startup. So I'm just very shortly going to introduce myself. I'm Darko. I'm originally from Serbia. I've been living here in the Netherlands for the last 6 years. My background is in software engineering. I worked as a software engineer for a number of years and then gradually, as it goes, moved into management. You can find me on pretty much any social network with my nickname, Dachas. And I would like to share a couple of things I'm passionate about. One of them is traveling to weird places. So right now I'm at 50 countries and counting. And related, obviously, is travel photography. Yet I'm still not on Instagram, so still something to come. One thing that might be surprising on that list is symphonic black metal. Well, so this is a shameless plug because we played 2 weeks ago in Serbia and we're going to play later this year in Netherlands, so make sure to come. And the thing that I'm going to be actually talking about is growing teams and individuals. So I work at Relay 42. I'm head of development at Relay 42. I think you should be working at Relay 42 as well. We're a product-driven company. We are working in personalizing communication of big brands and their customers. We are, for 3 years in a row now, top 50 fastest growing company in Netherlands and top 500 in EMEA region. And yeah, I could go on for ages, but this is not why you're watching this talk. So if you have any questions, feel free to approach me directly and click this link, join us. We need people like you. So I'm going to give you a bit of history. So here you can see 2 timelines. The upper timeline is timeline of Relay 42. The below timeline is, well, my personal timeline. So Relay 42 started end of 2011 as Synovite BV. Over the time, yeah, so 2 technical people, 2 business people, slowly growing, adding 1 or 2 technical, a couple of business people. Then mid 2013 changes name to Relay 42. Then so things are going okay. So pretty startup-y setup. Just add more people slowly. Then we come to that nearshoring point where first external team is added, and that kind of works. So then management is like, okay, so this worked. Let's just add more people, right? What's the worst that can happen? So a bit later, second external team is added, but then at that point things start collapsing. So I'm going to stop with the upper line for a moment there. Let's move to the line below. So beginning 2012, I moved to the Netherlands. I worked in a different company. It looked also very stable, startup-y friendly. But then mid 2014, apathy peaks at this company. So people start working in silos, start throwing things over the fence, and it's not us, it's them. And it starts looking grim. Over the time, things are getting worse. So beginning 2015, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this, so I'm just going to go. But then we get to mid 2015, and then, as with many other startups, the company gets acquired. And so I know that a lot of you have lived through acquisition. Of course, what's happening at that time, you get a lot of promises. So the promise that was given there is like, oh yeah, now we have this huge budget, we can do magical things, we can fix everything that's broken. And indeed, we start fixing things. So late 2015, with one other colleague, I start working on reorganizing the structure in this company. But then, going through 2016, not much happens. So, end 2016, the house is constantly on fire, management is constantly arguing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this. So 2017, I joined Relay. So, welcome to hell. So let's explore the sad state of affairs you can get into if you do not adapt to your growth. So I'm going to outline a number of sins. So sin number 1 is not being able to let go. So this is where everybody needs to know everything. And as a follow-up of everybody having to know everything, everybody has an opinion on everything. And then, of course, that comes to that nobody actually takes any responsibility for anything. And so what is the outcome of that? Well, so you just have more meetings, right? Because every decision has to be made with a committee. And then, yeah, there is more drama because there is more finger pointing and blaming when problems actually do arise. There is lack of trust, then it encourages a diva culture. So, if I don't do it, then it doesn't get done. And yeah, so onboarding becomes impossible because it's pretty much like, okay, yeah, hi, new person, here's our code, and yeah, the crucial parts are not documented, the not important parts are very documented, so good luck, have fun. Sin number 2, oral culture. So yeah, let's think on that one. So let's have perpetual meetings without any structure, without action points, and without documentation of what happened in those meetings. And yeah, so design documents, yeah, they're just a waste of time, so who needs that, right? And let's allocate 1 day a week to be a meeting day, when we are going to be very productive by sitting in a meeting room for the whole day. So what was the outcome of this? Well, meetings became sacred. So essentially, if you miss a meeting, you don't have access to knowledge because it's not documented anywhere. Attendees are completely unprepared for the meetings because, as I said before, you have allocated meeting day and you are productive if you are just showing up in a meeting and swiping on your phone or being on 9gag or whatever. And yeah, so the thing which bothers me the most is complex pull requests get declined after implementation. And so why is this happening? Well, because decisions on those pull requests are made in those meetings and they were never documented. So, if you were not there in the meeting, good luck. Sin number 3, pretending to be agile. So essentially, the synonym for this is flying blind. Let's do Scrum, but let's skip the sprint plannings and velocities. We don't really believe in that. And sprint demos, yeah, they're just boring. It's just people listing tickets. So yeah, let's not do all of those things. And then long-term roadmap, yeah, long-term, that's pretty long amount of time, right? So things are very fluid, we are very agile, so who needs that? And yeah, let's just make quarterly roadmaps, but then after presentation, let's figure out that we messed up majorly and that we have to change everything. So what was the outcome? Well, essentially there is absolutely no direction. So people working in your startup or scale up are just wondering like, okay, where the hell are we going? And that boils into no commitment. So essentially, no sprint gets ever fully completed because, well, how could it? So you don't have a proper planning, you don't have any idea of velocity, you have no idea how big are the stories you're working on, so, let's just group an arbitrary amount of tickets and let's pretend it's a sprint. Yeah, no transparency. So you have absolutely no knowledge of what other teams are doing unless you sit in those sacred meetings with them. And as there are more teams, as you're growing, then there is just more meetings. So when are you actually doing some follow-up work? And also from the management perspective, you have absolutely no idea when something is going to be in production. Because as I said, like you put something into sprints and sprints are essentially wishful thinking. And of course, what all of those 3 things add to is unhappy employees. And for me personally, bonus points, we're seeing management with books like Scrum for Dummies, yet claiming like, yeah, Scrum doesn't really work for us. So I'm pretty sure you heard this before. So sim number 4, pretending to have a process. So let's define some arbitrary rules, but let's execute them very selectively. So for example, there are many, but here are my personal favorites. So, okay, you need 2 approvals to merge a pull request. All right, option 1, scroll, scroll, scroll. Yeah, this guy is very smart. I'm just going to approve it. Or option 2, my supervisor has already approved this. So yeah, it must be good. I don't even have to read it. Or my absolute favorite in this category is, Sonar approved. So 2 approvals is 2 approvals. And another thing, so you could formalize your release process, but not document it. And you can also make sure that your release process does not apply to every release you make. So, we have a formalized process, but it applies only when Jupiter is in 3rd house. And of course, this is just a mess, but your incompetent manager thinks that things are okay because, come on, there are rules, right? So let's just follow them. And sin number 5, victim mode. So, yeah, it's not me, it's everybody else. I'm gonna give you a second to pause this video and to read this. And yeah, if you heard or said any of these, you should really think hard about where you are and where you're going. And I'm just going to assume that you unpaused. So that makes me go, but because I don't believe in going, what did we try to do? So we tried to fix all the things, but then we tried it in a certain way, which could be described as baby steps. So essentially, okay, let's make a long-term reformation plan with tiny deltas, and let's formalize some of the processes that are already happening, and enforce sticking to those processes. And as I said, tiny deltas, so slowly introduce changes so people don't freak out. And well, there was this also surprise part, like, okay, let's celebrate success, but when something is not working, let's not talk about it. That's not good for the general atmosphere. And as you might guess, well, this failed epically. Because let's make a long-term plan, and like what? So we're going to make a five-year reform plan and execute it in 4 years, like what? And then for formalizing parts of the process, so you essentially end up micromanaging and policing people, which is, I would say, not what you want to do. And then this, slowly introducing things so people don't freak out. You're just babysitting people, and you're essentially showing that you don't fully respect them. And of course, for this celebrate success but hide failures, people actually see failures from happening, so it makes it next to impossible for them to celebrate the success, because the celebration then becomes completely fake. And also as a side effect, some people completely burn out while other people don't learn anything. And in addition to this, those were things that happened, so nothing ever changes here. Or like, oh yeah, well, I don't like how we used to do things, but I'm used to it, so why bother with this change? It's tiny, it's almost the same. And the thing which struck me the most, I was part of a meeting where people said like, yeah, okay, we have formalized the processes, but so what if somebody doesn't follow? Like, what are the penalties? Like, really? I have to, formalize the stick? Like, no, let's not play like that. So, solution, revolution, of course. So, introducing circles. So, it's kind of like the infamous Spotify model, but without all the ridiculous names and hidden layers of management. And it's kind of like holacracy, but without all the nonsense meetings. So, what is a circle? So, it is a group of people who, for example, are experts in a specific field. So you could say, I don't know, QA circle, or big data circle, or front-end circle. And it could be also a group of people that share responsibility for an activity or process. So this could be one of your products, one of your deliverables. It could be also culture. So there is a group of people who care about the company culture. Then it could be a group of people that believe in the same innovation idea, and they want to join forces to make this reality. So I don't know how it is in your companies, but in a lot of companies it's like, oh yeah, we encourage innovation, but you do it when you find time for it, after all the sprint stories. So because I don't believe in pretending, and I don't believe that people should work weekends to achieve innovation, let's just formalize this. And depending on your business model, you might want to have meta or transparency circles. So this could be verticals that map to your business teams. And so why would you want to do circles in general? Well, so there are those 4 keywords: alignment, autonomy, growth, and commitment. So for alignment, we could say, okay, we are on the same ship. Let's agree where this ship is sailing. For autonomy, well, in all honesty, nobody wants to be a code monkey, right? So you want to be the creative force, the pushing force behind the ideas, and not to be told what you should be doing. Growth, it's not just about a company growth, it is about individual growth, and actually through the growth of individuals, your company will grow as well. And then the hardest one is commitment, and it is about asking the tough questions and not being afraid to fail. And here on the right, I have a chart of autonomy versus alignment. So if you have a lot of alignment but have no autonomy, then you have a very traditional bossy organization where you have, this big boss person telling you like, this is the way we go. We all go that way. Don't ask questions why. And then essentially, that brings the conformist culture. It's like, yeah, okay, well, I know where I'm going. I don't really care why, but let's just go. Then if you have no alignment, yet have no autonomy, then we go back to one of the sins that I mentioned. So you end up micromanaging and people just don't care again about what they're doing. Then if you give people autonomy but have no alignment, it just ends up in chaos. And then the ideal setup that we're aiming for is there is alignment, we know what is our common goal, but how you get there, we don't really care. So choose the tools, choose the methods which work for you, for as long as we're all going in the same direction. And so why did circles make sense for Relay 42? Well, so this setup addressed a number of our pains. So team split was very arbitrary. So if you look back towards the timeline that I showed in the beginning, so there was the Amsterdam team, then we added one external team, then we added another external team. Those external teams were, well, there were 2 core teams and the integrations team, but the integration team actually does core product as well, and a responsibility split was actually non-existent. So everybody knows everything, right? And that built up to a knowledge gap and a strong dependency on the founding fathers. So, 3 people that started a company, they know everything. The other people, And then, as I mentioned already, onboarding took forever. Why? Well, because you're supposed to know everything. So yeah, let's just give you the whole code base and like all the products that have been built over the last 6 years, and you're just gonna figure it out, right? And that made no clear overview of what we're doing it, when we're doing it, and who's doing what. And again, there was no structure in innovation. So as I said, like, I don't believe that innovation is something that just magically happens after hours. So how do you move from where you are right now into circles? Well, step 1 for us was identifying the existing initiatives within the company. So we looked at our product palette and looked at some meta things that were happening. We grouped those together and then said, like, all right, so here are some product circles, here are some meta circles. One thing that you might find interesting in this graph, some things are labeled as temporary. So that is the beauty of circles. So you can assemble a group of people to achieve certain task. When this task is achieved, all right, we're done, mission complete. So disband the circle and start something new. And then when you cluster your existing initiatives into circles, well, you have to assign circle leads. And what is a circle lead? Well, so it's not necessarily the same thing as the traditional team lead. It's more somewhere between product owner and a scrum master. So essentially, it is a person who knows the most about the things that this circle is doing and who is capable of motivating people around them to be productive, to be committed, to deliver technical stuff. And because I kept insisting about innovation, so how do you create a new circle? So you start with an idea, then you incubate it a bit, essentially discuss with people around you, does this make sense? Do maybe some experiments if it's a more technical thing. Test support across the company and try to define what's your quality measure. Then the next step is setting up a manifest, which is a kind of formalized document about what is this, why is this, what is the impact of this, who will care about this, so essentially why we should invest into doing this. During this process, guardians are going to help you. I'm going to mention that a bit later, who are the guardians. And essentially, this whole process of preparing the manifest is preparing you as a potential future circle lead for the pitch. So pitch is when you're showing this idea to the company and where you are ready to actually answer a lot of questions. Because essentially you need to get a buy-in from the rest of the company that this is a good idea to do. And they will have a lot of questions, some technical, some business. And instead of you being, like deer in the headlights and being like, oh, I don't know, I didn't think about this, you can just say, oh yeah, this is in my manifest. I hope you have read it. And so from the pitching ceremony, it can go either way. Your idea gets voted or it doesn't get voted. So first, let's observe the path where your idea gets voted. It gets passed on to the management, which then evaluates your idea, offers some time allocation, and aligns the roadmap to cater for the previously changed time allocation. During this let's say, process. Your manifest might be changed a little bit, so you will have a question and answer loop with the management. And then as a final step, management approves this idea or rejects it, up to their prerogative. But in either way, there is a demo session afterwards where this decision is communicated. So if the idea is approved, congratulations, there is a new circle. Maybe it starts immediately, maybe it starts a bit later, but you're part of the ecosystem now. Or if it was rejected, well, so then it goes the same way as if your pitch got rejected. Fail and learn from this failure. So evaluate what was the reason for this failure. Was it not thought through enough? Was it that it's completely not aligned with the company vision? Was it that it might irritate some of the partners? But essentially, just learn from this idea, and then maybe you can do a minor change and reboot the idea later, or you can say like, okay, yeah, there were mostly bad parts, but there were a couple of good parts, and let's reshape that into a new pitch for a new circle. So, who can guarantee that all of this was going to work? Well, as I mentioned already, there is this meta circle called Guardians of Circles. The job of these people is encouraging pitches of new circles. So essentially, if they identify that certain initiative is happening within the company and that is happening kind of unofficially, they should encourage that this is pitched as an official thing. They should track circle progress. So are they delivering on the milestones that they proposed? And how is it going in general? So are they struggling? Are they having conflicts with other circles? They should help in resource management. So I mentioned already the timesheet. So timesheet makes it, time allocation sheet. So it makes it makes it easier to be more flexible. In essence, every circle member can say like, okay, I would like to be allocated 40% in this circle and 60% in this circle. If that fits with a company vision, then all right. And it's up to you and your circle leads to manage this time. So we are not going to do time tracking like, okay, how much time is spent. But if this communication with your circle leads for whichever reason doesn't work, then Guardians of Circles should be your escalation proxy if you need. So how you can arrange things better. And it's not just for, let's say, helping circles on the day-to-day basis. It's also having regular sessions with upper management to make sure that still on the company level, everything is aligned. And again, so the other people who can guarantee that this idea can work is the upper management. So essentially, you need to have the full buy-in into the circle setup. So I can say that at the previous employer, BV, there was not a full buy-in. So circles were something next to the teams, and that was not very motivating. And so from management perspective, there should be monthly or quarterly, depending on your business model, re-evaluation of priorities, which concretely translates in the time allocation sheet that I just mentioned. So the first question is always, yeah, but what about the meetings? Doesn't this mean that now I'm in 2 circles, I've got to be in more meetings? So actually, no. What we did at Relay, we kept the familiar meeting structure. So, the planning, the grooming, the retrospective, all of that. But you have them only when you need them. So don't have meetings for the sake of meetings. And this is keeping meetings short and relevant because you have only the people that are interested in this topic in this room. So there are no, special observers who are there just because it's in their agenda. And as I said, yeah, this results in less recurring and more focused meetings, which are more productive. So all of this is very nice, but it's also very technical. And as I said, I care about personal growth of employees. So how does this fit? Well, we introduced the mentoring system, and a mentor is closer maybe to the traditional team lead in a sense that they are doing one-on-ones, personal goals, coaching, this kind of stuff. And they're not necessarily circle leads. They could be, but they don't have to be. But they do take input from your circle leads about how is your day-to-day in the circle. And one thing that we find important, you should share at least one of your circles with your mentor, because then they can see how you are actually dealing with day-to-day activities, and if you have any struggles, it is much easier to also do this guidance if you're in the same circle. And of course, if a mentor cannot help you with something, there is always HR, right? So this is all nice in theory, but what are the outcomes? Well, I have to be honest, it's still early days. We introduced this end of last year, but we already see a dramatic increase in productivity, for example. So people are proactively identifying areas that can be improved, and they're organizing themselves to improve them. There is a lot more motivation, so they're actually excited about the topics we're going to work on this year. And this is especially because they're now the driving force behind what's happening. And yeah, so I constantly go back to this. There is one colleague who is like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a really hard year, but I'm looking forward to it. So this is the type of motivation that you want to have. Then there is a major increase in responsibility. So when things break, they're no longer going, to the 3 founding fathers. They're actually going out of their way to figure out how to fix things and how to prevent things like this from happening again. There is more focus, so people are no longer trying to do like 10, 15 things at the same time, but the time allocation sheet again kicks in. And what we tried and what seems to be working is slicing your time and saying like, okay, those 2 days I'm going to work on this circle, and then the next 4 or 5 days I'm going to work on that circle. And then you have clear focus zone where you can do some things. And of course, I mean, if a question comes on your off days about something from your circle, you're not supposed to be, the garden of solitude and like, no, I cannot help you. But if it's like, oh, can you do a quick review, which will end up being the next 3 hours, then you should say like, no, please, I'm gonna come to it next week. Or another thing which works for us is like, okay, so sometimes you have a pressing deadline, you have to deliver, and you cannot really observe your time allocation. So fine, your time allocation is a currency after all. So you could say, all right, so to make this deadline, I need to stretch my time for this circle, but that means I'm just going to pay back to the other circle later. And then, yeah, there is great improvement in communication. So again, it helps with those clear boundaries. People are more comfortable saying they don't know something and organizing a knowledge transfer session than when you're in a big meeting and when you're supposed to know everything. It's a big shame to say that you don't know something, right? And needless to say, all of this adds to happiness. So what have we learned from this? Well, it's very important to define and embrace your company culture. So don't try to pretend you're something you're not. People see through fake smiles. So if you're a startup, behave like a startup. If you're a huge corporate, behave like a huge corporate. Do not try to mix and match. And I really do hope that there is more to your company culture than, we have craft beers on Friday. And, if in your team there are some people that just do not fit in this culture and they are sticking out and they're there just because they joined when you were 3 people, well, maybe you should get rid of them. It's hard, but all right. Encourage learning and knowledge sharing. So this goes both on individual level and on company level. On an individual level, send people to meetups, to conferences, do workshops. It actually doesn't even have to be outside of the office. You can bring people in. You don't even have to bring external people in. You can just say like, oh, you seem to know something that they don't know. Why don't you throw a workshop or a presentation or something? So this is really powerful method, and it's very important to learn from each other's mistakes. And then on a company level, listen out, what's happening in the market, what other companies are doing, and adapt and optimize, and it might work out for you. And after all, I mean, this Lead Developers Amsterdam meetup group started just for this, right? Learn to communicate. So this starts with listening to others, and that is the hardest part. And yeah, so if you can, have your whole team do a communication style training. It's really going to help you. If you can, send your team leads to a team lead training or leadership training. Because what I've seen myself, often happens is that you have two people with the same idea sitting in a room and fighting with each other just because they don't understand each other and because they don't listen to each other. Enforce transparency. This is my personal favorite. So document everything. So of course, don't go crazy, don't go IBM, don't go like, let's document every bowel movement. But everything that's important that will help you in the future, do not keep it in the air. Write it down. Very important also under this is build relationship on honesty and follow up on your promises, because, well, people will notice if you don't, and they will appreciate it a lot if you do. Related, trust your people. So, as I said already, responsibility comes from ownership, and I personally believe that bottom-up is the way to go in this day and age. Lead by example. So, align your leadership team, make sure that they speak in one voice, communicate a clear vision, and when things get dirty, get down on the battlefield, help your people, but protect them from demons, but don't babysit them. So don't look down on them, be there with them. And finally, check your ego. So you honestly don't want just ninjas and rock stars, you actually want a group of people that you will enjoy working on for a prolonged period of time. And try to always hire people who are better than you and maybe even better than the rest of the team. Because that's the only way you yourself can grow and team can grow. And here is a shout out to my previous CEO. Engineers can be great managers too. It's that simple. Thanks.